The massive Imperial flagship hung in space like a predatory bird, its dark metal hull reflecting the distant starlight. On its bridge, High Commander Robert Smith of the Imperial Survey Fleet stared at the blue planet displayed on the main screen. "Another primitive world," he muttered, adjusting his perfectly pressed uniform. "Prepare the standard invasion protocols." But something about this planet was different. The scans showed unusual energy readings, far too organized to be natural. The humans, as they called themselves, had already established colonies on their red neighbor Mars and had begun mining operations on their system's asteroid belt. "Sir," called out one of his officers, "we're detecting significant technological advancement for a pre-FTL civilization." Smith nodded slowly. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, and this would be no different. Yet, standard procedure required attempting diplomatic contact before any military action. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast the Empire's standard greeting message to all Earth frequencies. The response came faster than expected. Earth's governments had united decades ago, forming the United Earth Council. When they detected the Imperial ship approaching their solar system, they were ready. They had been waiting for this moment for years. In the Council's main chamber in Geneva, the leaders of Earth gathered to discuss their response. They knew this day would come, the day humanity would face its first contact with the galaxy's dominant power. "We must be careful," said John Williams, the Council's chief diplomat. "The Empire doesn't know our true capabilities. That's our advantage." The Council selected James Miller as Earth's representative. A veteran diplomat with 30 years of experience, Miller understood the delicate balance they needed to maintain. He had to appear cooperative while hiding humanity's true strength. The meeting was arranged on neutral ground, a space station orbiting Jupiter. The Empire chose this location, thinking it would intimidate the primitive humans. They didn't know that humanity had built hidden bases throughout their solar system decades ago. Miller's shuttle approached the station, deliberately using older propulsion technology. He watched through the viewport as his small craft was dwarfed by the Imperial vessel. The Empire's arrogance was evident in every detail of their ship's design. All flash and intimidation. Inside the station, Miller walked into the conference room alone. 3 Imperial representatives waited for him, their expressions a mixture of boredom and contempt. Their translator devices hummed softly in the background. "Welcome, representative of Earth," the lead Imperial delegate said, not bothering to stand. "I am Coordinator White. We are here to discuss your world's peaceful integration into the Empire." Miller took his seat calmly. "Thank you for this opportunity," he said, playing his role perfectly. "Earth is interested in learning more about the Empire." White smiled condescendingly. "Of course. We have much to teach developing civilizations like yours. The Empire brings order and progress to thousands of worlds." As the meeting progressed, Miller noticed how the Imperials barely paid attention to his questions about their military capabilities. They were so convinced of their superiority that they freely shared information about their fleet strengths and defensive systems. Back on their flagship, High Commander Smith reviewed the meeting recordings. "These humans seem docile enough," he said to his officers. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They still use chemical rockets for space travel." But in his private quarters on the station, Miller sent a heavily encrypted message to the Council. "They took the bait. They see exactly what we want them to see." The Council's response was brief. "Maintain the deception. Operation Shadow Shield remains in effect." For decades, humanity had hidden its true technological advancement. The visible space program, the seemingly primitive satellites, the Mars colonies, all were carefully crafted decoys. Deep underground and in secret orbital facilities, humanity's real fleet waited, armed with weapons that would shock the Empire. Miller slept soundly that night, knowing that the Empire's overconfidence would be their downfall. Tomorrow, he would continue the charade, playing the role of an awestruck representative from a developing world. In Earth's hidden command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Wilson watched the Imperial ships on advanced quantum sensors that the Empire couldn't detect. "Let them think we're harmless," he said to his staff. "The harder they underestimate us, the easier this will be." The first phase of humanity's plan was working perfectly. The Empire had no idea what they were walking into, and Earth intended to keep it that way for as long as possible. The second day of negotiations began with the same pompous display from the Imperial delegates. Coordinator White strutted into the conference room, followed by his two assistants who carried holographic displays of the Empire's mighty fleet. Miller sat quietly, watching as they prepared their presentation. His weathered face revealed nothing of the calculated thoughts behind his diplomatic mask. "As you can see," White gestured to the floating images, "the Empire's peacekeeping force consists of over 10,000 capital ships, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to glass." He paused, expecting to see fear or awe in Miller's eyes. Instead, Miller reached into his briefcase and pulled out an old-fashioned paper folder. "Before we continue, I'd like to share some of Earth's history with you." White laughed, the sound echoing off the station's walls. "Primitive paper records. How quaint." "In Earth's history," Miller began, ignoring the mockery, "we had something called World War II. It lasted 6 years. Do you know how many people died?" The Imperial delegates exchanged bored looks. "Planetary conflicts are common among developing species," White said dismissively. "Over 70 million people," Miller continued, his voice steady. "And that was just one of our wars. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've perfected the art of warfare in ways you couldn't imagine." For the first time, White's smug expression flickered. "Are you threatening the Empire?" "No," Miller replied calmly. "I'm warning you. You see, humans are different from the other species you've conquered. We don't fight for glory or territory. We fight to survive." He opened the folder and spread out photographs. Cities reduced to ash, massive war machines, nuclear explosions. "This is what we did to ourselves. Imagine what we'd do to an outside threat." One of White's assistants leaned forward, studying the images. "These are fabricated. No pre-FTL civilization could cause such destruction." Miller pulled out one final document. "This is from our Cold War era. 2 superpowers, pointing thousands of nuclear weapons at each other for decades. We lived every day knowing we could destroy our entire world several times over, and we kept building more weapons anyway." The room fell silent. White's confident posture had stiffened slightly. "Your empire has never faced a species like us," Miller said softly. "You've never fought someone who turned their entire planet into a fortress, who spent centuries preparing for a threat from the stars." He stood up, gathering his papers. "So I'm giving you a chance to reconsider. For your sake, don't start this fight." White slammed his hand on the table. "You dare threaten the Empire? We could obliterate your planet with a single command." Miller smiled for the first time since the meetings began. "You could try, but let me tell you what would happen. You'd fire your weapons, feeling confident in your superior technology. And then you'd learn that Earth isn't what you think it is, that all you've seen is what we wanted you to see." In the hidden command center on Earth, Admiral Wilson watched the exchange through secure channels. He turned to his staff. "Prep the Ghost Fleet. If they don't heed the warning, we'll have to show them why they should have." Back on the station, White had regained his composure. "Your primitive threats mean nothing. The Empire has never lost a war." "That's because you've never fought humans before," Miller replied, walking toward the door. He stopped and turned back. "Ask yourselves this. Why would a species that nearly destroyed itself multiple times appear so peaceful now? What changed?" The question hung in the air as Miller left the room. The Imperial delegates sat in uncomfortable silence, their certainty shaken for the first time. In his private quarters, Miller sent another encrypted message to Earth. "They're rattled, but not convinced. Prepare for Phase 3. The response came quickly. "Understanding." Defense grid activated, waiting for their move. As Miller looked out at the Imperial flagship through his window, he knew the next few days would change the galaxy forever. The Empire was about to learn why Earth's warning should have been taken seriously. 3 days after Miller's warning, the Empire made its first move. Their massive warships appeared near Mars, weapons charged and ready. High Commander Smith stood proudly on his bridge, preparing to teach these upstart humans a lesson in humility. "Begin the show of force," Smith ordered. "Target their Mars colonies. Let's show them what real power looks like." The Imperial ships opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space like artificial suns. The beams struck Mars's surface, targeting the apparent locations of human settlements. Smith smiled as explosions bloomed across the red planet. But his smile faded quickly. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, confusion in his voice. "The colonies, they're hollow. They're decoys." Before Smith could process this information, alarms blared across his ship. Hidden doors in Mars's surface slid open, revealing massive weapon installations. Platforms that the Empire's scans had dismissed as mining equipment transformed into defense stations. "Impossible," Smith shouted. "They're supposed to be pre-FTL." The first human counterstrike hit like a thunderbolt. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through Imperial shields as if they didn't exist. The Empire's supposedly impenetrable defenses meant nothing against weapons they'd never encountered before. In Earth's deep underground command center, Admiral Wilson watched the battle unfold. "Activate the Sentinel network," he ordered. "Show them what humanity's been hiding." Across the solar system, hundreds of stealth satellites revealed themselves. The Empire's mighty fleet found itself caught in a web of crossfire. Their sensors, designed to detect known forms of technology, were blind to Earth's quantum-based systems. Smith watched in horror as his ships began exploding one after another. This can't be happening. They're savages, primitives. A new signal cut through their communications. Miller's voice came through clear and calm. "We warned you. We told you not to start this fight." On Earth, the United Council activated their true defense grid. Massive cannons emerged from beneath the oceans. Hidden bases on the moon powered up weapon systems that had been waiting decades for this moment. "Second wave, prepare to launch," Wilson commanded. From secret hangars across Earth, humanity's real fleet took to the skies. Ships that made the Empire's vessels look primitive by comparison. Smith ordered a retreat, but it was too late. His fleet was trapped between Mars' defenses and Earth's advancing forces. "How?" he screamed as another explosion rocked his flagship. "How did they hide all this?" The answer came in the form of a direct transmission from Miller, now standing in Earth's true command center. "We've been preparing for this moment for centuries. Every piece of primitive technology you saw was carefully crafted to deceive. Every satellite you scanned was designed to hide our real capabilities." Wilson's voice joined the transmission. "Your Empire made one crucial mistake. You assumed that because we hadn't contacted you, we couldn't. The truth is, we discovered FTL travel 50 years ago. We saw what your Empire did to other worlds. So we waited, we prepared, and we built." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the Empire's mighty show of force had been reduced to floating debris. Only Smith's flagship remained, damaged but intact, left alive to carry a message back to the Empire. Miller's final transmission to the retreating flagship was simple. "Tell your leaders that this was just a fraction of Earth's true strength. We'll be expecting their surrender delegation within one standard week." As Smith's crippled ship limped away from the solar system, he finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. They had walked into a trap centuries in the making, sprung by a species that had turned paranoia into an art form. In the aftermath, Wilson stood with Miller, watching the cleanup begin. "Think they learned their lesson?" Wilson asked. Miller shook his head. "No, the Empire's too proud. They'll be back, with a bigger fleet next time." "Good," Wilson replied, "because we got a lot more surprises waiting for them." Above them, Earth's real defense fleet moved into position, their quantum drives humming silently in the void. The Empire was about to learn why humanity had spent so long preparing for war. 1 week after the Mars incident, Earth launched Operation Thunderbolt. Admiral Wilson stood in the true command center, watching as humanity's Ghost Fleet prepared for their first offensive strike. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Quantum drives charged and coordinates locked on Imperial space." Wilson nodded grimly. "Begin Phase 1. Let's show them what a real fight looks like." The human fleet jumped into FTL, but not using the predictable lanes the Empire monitored. Instead, they traveled through quantum space, a dimension the Empire didn't even know existed. Their ships emerged directly inside Imperial territory, bypassing every defense system. The first target was the Empire's proudest military installation, Station Alpha, their primary fleet headquarters. The station's commanders barely had time to register the unknown ships before the attack began. "Imperial Station Alpha, this is Earth Fleet Command." Wilson's message boomed across all frequencies. "Consider this a demonstration of real power." Human ships, sleek and deadly, moved with impossible precision. Their weapons weren't the crude energy beams the Empire used, but concentrated quantum strikes that simply ignored shields and armor. Inside Station Alpha, panic spread as defenders realized their weapons had no effect on the Earth vessels. Every shot passed harmlessly through the human ships, as if they weren't even there. "How are they doing this?" an Imperial commander demanded. "Nothing can phase through quantum-reinforced armor." The answer came in the form of more human ships appearing inside the station itself. Earth's Marines, wearing advanced combat suits, stepped through solid walls as if they were mist. In the Imperial capital, the High Council received desperate messages from their outlying worlds. Human forces were striking everywhere simultaneously, appearing and disappearing at will. Their entire defense network, built over thousands of years, was useless. Wilson directed the assault from his flagship, watching through quantum sensors as the Empire's military crumbled. "Phase 2, he ordered. "Show them the gravity weapons." New ships joined the attack, carrying humanity's most terrifying creation. They didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they manipulated gravity itself. Imperial ships found themselves crushed into spheres the size of basketballs, their crews never even having time to scream. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from 3 Imperial sectors." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "Ignore them. We're not here to accept surrenders. We're here to make a point." Back on Earth, Miller watched the battle feeds with the United Council. "Perhaps we should consider accepting their surrender," he suggested. "Show mercy as a sign of strength." The council leader shook his head. "Not yet. First, they need to understand what they've awakened. The Empire has ruled through fear for too long. It's time they felt fear themselves." In Imperial space, the demonstration continued. Human ships appeared in the heart of their most secure facilities. Earth's quantum warriors walked through their strongest defenses. The Empire's mighty fleets found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't even touch. "Final phase," Wilson commanded. His ships formed up around a massive Imperial shipyard. "Show them the planet Cracker." A single human vessel moved forward, barely a tenth the size of Imperial capital ships. It fired one shot. Just one. The entire shipyard, along with the small moon it orbited, vanished into a quantum singularity. The message was clear. Earth could have done this to any Imperial world. They could have struck directly at the Empire's heart. Instead, they chose to demonstrate their power in a way that couldn't be ignored. Wilson opened a channel to all Imperial frequencies. This was a demonstration of 1% of Earth's military capability. "We could end your empire today, but we're giving you a chance to learn. The next demonstration won't be so gentle." As his fleet prepared to return home, Wilson received a priority message from Earth. The Imperial High Council was requesting an immediate ceasefire and diplomatic negotiations. "Should we accept?" his executive officer asked. Wilson looked at the devastation they'd caused with such a small force. Yes, but keep the fleet ready. The Empire needs to understand. The old galaxy died today. A new order is coming, whether they like it or not. The Imperial High Council gathered in their grand chamber, their usual confidence shattered. Before them, holographic displays showed the devastating results of Earth's attack. Centuries of Imperial military supremacy had been erased in a single day. How? The Grand Commander asked, his voice trembling. How did we miss this level of technological advancement? The answer came from their chief intelligence officer, who had spent the last 48 hours analyzing Earth's history. His face was pale as he presented his findings. They fooled us completely, he began. What we thought was their space program was an elaborate deception. Those primitive rockets, the clumsy satellites, the basic Mars colonies, all carefully crafted props. The council chamber fell silent as he continued. We've discovered that humans began preparing for interstellar war before they even reached their moon. Every major nation on Earth poured resources into secret space defense programs. When they finally unified, it wasn't for peace. It was to build the most formidable military force the galaxy has ever seen. New images appeared, showing Earth's true capabilities. Hidden bases beneath their oceans. Massive underground cities dedicated to weapons research. Quantum technology that made the Empire's best ships look like children's toys. Their entire civilization, the intelligence officer explained, was structured around preparing for this moment. While we watched their visible progress, their real advancement happened in complete secrecy. One council member stood up, his voice angry. But why? Why prepare so extensively for a war they didn't know was coming? Because they assumed it would come, a new voice answered. The council turned to see Admiral Wilson's transmission appearing in their chamber. They hadn't even detected the quantum signal. Humanity's history taught us one thing, Wilson continued, his image towering over them. The strong always try to dominate the weak, so we made sure that when we met aliens, we wouldn't be the weak ones. The council watched in horror as Wilson showed them more of Earth's hidden capabilities. Weapons that could erase entire star systems. Ships that could appear anywhere instantly. Defenses that made their best attacks meaningless. For centuries, Wilson explained, we fought ourselves, nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. But we learned. We evolved. Every war taught us new lessons. While your empire grew soft from easy victories, humanity was forging itself into the ultimate fighting force. The intelligence officer's final report confirmed their worst fears. Earth hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for total galactic conflict. Their industrial capacity, hidden beneath the surface of their world and throughout their solar system, could produce more ships in a month than the Empire could in a year. We found this in their public archives, the intelligence officer said, playing an ancient video. It showed a primitive human saying, "The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter stalking through the trees. The safest thing to do is kill other hunters before they find you." The Grand Commander sank into his chair. They were never primitive. They were waiting, watching, preparing. Another council member spoke up. We must launch a full attack now, before they can. Before we can what? Wilson's image interrupted. Everything you're saying, everything you're planning. We're hearing it all. Your quantum encryption is centuries behind ours. We're in all your systems, all your networks. The council chamber's lights flickered, demonstrating Earth's complete penetration of their technology. You have a choice, Wilson continued. Accept the new reality or face extinction. Humanity spent centuries preparing for this moment. We won't waste all that preparation. As Wilson's transmission ended, the council sat in stunned silence. Outside their windows, Earth's ghost fleet appeared and disappeared, revealing just a fraction of their true numbers. The Grand Commander finally spoke. Send the surrender delegation. The Empire as we knew it ended today. In Earth's command center, Wilson watched the Empire's leadership crumble. Think they've learned their lesson? He asked Miller, who stood beside him. Miller shook his head. They're learning it now. The galaxy just discovered why humans always prepare for the worst. Because sometimes, the worst is exactly what you get. In the Grand Imperial Palace, once a symbol of unquestioned power, the Emperor himself sat on his throne, facing the unthinkable, drafting terms of surrender. Before him stood Miller and Wilson, their presence a stark reminder of humanity's overwhelming victory. Your terms, the Emperor asked, his voice carrying none of its usual authority. Miller stepped forward, placing a quantum tablet on the ornate table. First, acknowledge Earth's sovereign space, including all territories within 50 light-years of our solar system. The Emperor's advisors gasped. This would mean surrendering over 30 Imperial worlds. Second, Wilson continued, your fleet will stand down. All military vessels will power down and await inspection by Earth forces. This is outrageous. An Imperial general shouted. You can't expect. His words cut off as a human ship appeared inside the palace chamber itself, hovering silently, its weapons aimed at the Imperial leadership. We can expect anything we want, Wilson stated calmly. Or would you like another demonstration? The Emperor raised his hand, silencing his general. Continue. Miller activated the tablet, projecting a map of the galaxy. The Empire will withdraw from these sectors immediately. They will become neutral zones, protected by Earth. As the negotiations continued, reports flooded in from across Imperial space. More human ships were appearing everywhere, simultaneously. They weren't firing. They didn't need to. Their mere presence was enough to secure the surrender of entire star systems. How many ships do you have? The Emperor finally asked, his curiosity overwhelming his pride. Wilson smiled. Would you believe me if I said this isn't even 10% of our fleet? The color drained from the Emperor's face. One of his advisors fainted. In orbit above the Imperial capital, Earth's true military might become visible. Massive carriers emerged from quantum space, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a solar system. Sleek destroyers moved through Imperial defenses like ghosts, their quantum drives making them untouchable. Your empire has a choice, Miller explained. Adapt or cease to exist. The galaxy cannot remain under the control of a single power that rules through fear. The Emperor looked at the human representatives, finally understanding. You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you? Because we're not like you, Wilson replied. We don't seek dominion. We seek balance. The galaxy needs change, not destruction. As if to emphasize his point, a holographic display showed Earth ships helping Imperial civilians, providing aid to worlds that had suffered under Imperial rule. It was a calculated move, showing not just Earth's power, but also its capacity for mercy. The terms are simple, Miller continued. The Empire will transform. No more conquests, no more subjugation. You will join a new Galactic Council, where all species have equal voice. The Emperor watched as more reports came in. Imperial worlds weren't just surrendering. They were welcoming the humans as liberators. Centuries of Imperial oppression had created too many enemies. And if we refuse? The Emperor asked, already knowing the answer. Wilson walked to the window, pointing at the quantum fleet visible in the sky. Then we finish what we started. But consider this, we're offering you a chance to be part of something greater than an empire. We're offering you a future. The Emperor stood slowly, his decision made. Not just for himself, but for the survival of his people. We accept your terms. As the Emperor signed the surrender documents, Miller sent a message back to Earth. Phase 6 complete. The Empire has fallen, not with a bang, but with understanding. Wilson looked out at the Imperial capital, its mighty towers now shadowed by Earth's ships. Send word to the fleet. Begin Operation New Dawn. Across the galaxy, human ships started their new mission, not of destruction, but of transformation. The Empire's fall marked not an ending, but a beginning. In the palace chamber, Miller watched as Imperial officials began the process of implementing Earth's terms. Humanity's greatest victory, he mused, wasn't defeating the Empire. It was showing them a better way. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in millennia, it was changing for the better. 1 month after the Empire's surrender, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered in Earth's newly constructed Galactic Assembly. The massive structure, built in orbit around Earth's moon, served as a symbol of the new era. Miller stood at the main podium, addressing the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. Former Imperial worlds, independent systems, and even newly discovered civilizations had come to witness the birth of a new galactic order. For too long, the galaxy lived under the shadow of empire, Miller began. Today, we forge a different path, not one of dominance, but of cooperation. In the assembly hall, the former emperor sat not on a throne, but on an equal seat among other leaders, his once magnificent robes replaced by simpler diplomatic attire. Beside him, leaders from worlds that had once feared to even speak in his presence now voiced their opinions freely. Admiral Wilson, watching from Earth's command center, monitored the quantum security grid. The same technology that had won the war now protected the peace. "Status report," he commanded. "All sectors stable," his officer replied. Former Imperial worlds are adapting to the new protocols. The transition is proceeding faster than expected. On countless worlds, the changes were already visible. Imperial command centers transformed into schools and hospitals. Military shipyards now produced vessels for exploration and trade. The Empire's vast resources, once used for conquest, were redirected to improve life across the galaxy. "We propose a new system," Miller continued, his voice carrying to every corner of known space. "A galactic council where every world has a voice, where technology and knowledge are shared, not hoarded, where strength serves peace, not oppression." The assembly erupted in approval. Even former Imperial hardliners found themselves nodding in agreement. Earth's demonstration of power had taught them an important lesson. True strength lies not in domination, but in wisdom. In Earth's hidden shipyards, the massive war fleet was being repurposed. Weapon systems converted to scientific instruments. Battle cruisers transformed into exploration vessels. Humanity's preparation for war now served the cause of peace. "The human way," Miller explained, "is not to seek conflict, but to be ready for it. We built our strength not to rule, but to ensure that no one else could rule through fear again." The former emperor rose to speak, his words carrying the weight of centuries. "We thought we were the pinnacle of civilization. We were wrong. Earth showed us that true civilization begins when strength serves wisdom." As if to emphasize his point, a massive hologram appeared above the assembly, showing the new galactic defense grid, a network of quantum-linked stations designed by Earth but operated jointly by all worlds, ensuring no single power could ever threaten galactic peace again. "The dark forest theory was wrong," Miller concluded. "The universe need not be a place of hunters and prey. Together, we can build something greater." In the following days, thousands of treaties were signed. Trade routes opened between formerly isolated worlds. Scientific knowledge, long hoarded by the Empire, flowed freely. A new age of exploration and discovery began. Wilson, touring a former Imperial warship now converted into a hospital ship, smiled at the changes. "Think it will last?" he asked Miller, who had joined him. "It will," Miller replied, "because we're not enforcing it. They're choosing it. The Empire taught them what power over others means. We showed them what power with others can achieve." Earth's warning to the Empire had been simple: run. But the greater message had been about evolution. The evolution of civilization itself. From conquest to cooperation, from dominance to partnership. In the Galactic Assembly's final session, a young alien child, daughter of a former Imperial governor, presented Miller with a simple flower from her world. "For teaching us not to be afraid," she said. Miller accepted the gift, knowing it represented more than any treaty could. The galaxy had learned humanity's greatest lesson. True strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to build. As the assembly concluded, Miller sent his final report to Earth's Council. Mission accomplished. The galaxy is not just at peace, it's growing. We didn't just end an empire. We started a renaissance. Above Earth, the stars shone brighter than ever, no longer harboring threats, but promising endless possibilities. Humanity's preparation for war had achieved something far greater. It had created the foundation for lasting peace.